What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and we've got another Chaos Return format video. Chaos Return format, if you don't know, is the format basically a year after GOAT, held in the August 2006 SJC Indianapolis, and using the April 2006 limit list. Now, the card pool goes up to Enemy of Justice, and that does introduce some important things, but the main differences from Reaper format are the changes on the ban list. So, a lot of very interesting decks that arise because of those changes on the ban list, and one of those is the sort of titular deck of the format, Chaos Return. Now, Chaos Return, basically, the idea is that you're playing things like Chaos Orcs, and you're banishing Lights and Darks to then fuel a Return from the Different Dimension play, bring back a bunch of guys, and kill your opponent through an OTK. Now, despite the name of this deck being the name of the format, if you check a lot of modern results, this deck wasn't really that represented. You know, it'd show up in some top cuts here and there, but most of the time when it does show up, it's not even playing like a full set of Return or a full set of Chaos Orcs. It's just sort of like maybe on one Return the tech card, but most of the time you see Chaos Control in the topping list. So I found this a bit curious, and I decided to take the deck for a spin on my own, basically adapting a topping list. This was GBO's list that managed to top one of the previous Chaos Return tournaments, and I basically switched out a Bottomless Trap Hole that they had in the main deck for a Return from the Different Dimension, because one, Bottomless Trap Hole I don't think is quite as good in this metagame. You know, there are people playing the anti-meta sort of like stun deck where you play DD Survivor, and that's really bad into Bottomless, of course. Although if you banish it in the end phase when it comes back, I guess there's something there. But either way, I think Bottomless is a bit less good in this format, at least in the main deck. We still have it in the side. But I decided to play 2 returns instead. And I figured, it would be interesting to see how this deck actually does and see if we can actually pull off a return OTK, or if it's just better leaning more heavily into the Chaos Sorcerer stuff and the Chaos Control stuff. Now, you could argue that I should be playing 3 Return here, 3 Chaos Orc to really fully embrace this deck, and that is an argument you can make, but I decided just to go with the 2 because I couldn't really think about what else to cut, by adding a 3rd Sorc or a 3rd Return. I feel like the rest of this deck is pretty finely tuned, and so I didn't want to disrupt that balance too much. But let me know in the comments after this video if you think that this deck would have been better or worse with a 3rd Sorc and a 3rd Return. But anyways, diving into the card by card, we got a Breaker the Magical Warrior, a great dark monster that can clear away your opponent's back row. We got double Sorc to, bring out and just be a big body that can banish your opponent's stuff. We've got triple Cyber Dragon here to get aggressive and also be a good light. We got a Cyber Stein here and a Last Will because this package is just very easy to fit into a variety of decks. And if you can set up a lethal push with it, it's very, very good. We got a DD Warley here to banish our opponent's stuff. We got double Decoichi here to draw. Also, if it gets knocked, you get 2 good targets to return off of Return for the Different Dimension. We got double Magical Merchant here as well to mill out our deck a little bit, get monsters in grave, and also get a powerful spell trap to hand. We got double Magician of Faith to grab back spells from grave. We got Knight Assailant if we pitch it off something like Graceful Charity, which is legal in this format for some reason. If we pitch it off something like that, we can get back a Faith, a Merchant, or a Decoichi, which is all pretty good. We got a Sangan here to be a good dark and also search out a variety of your deck. We got a Spirit Reaper here to rip apart our opponent's hand. We got a Treeborn Frog to just keep coming back. We got a Tsukiyomi to reset our flip monsters. We've got a Zaborg the Thunder Monarch ×3, so just acts in aggressive pressure, also a great light. We got a Book of Moon for a spell. It's a very good card in the game. It can also reset our own flip monsters, which is very nice as well. We've got a Comfy to rip apart our opponent's hand. We got an Econ to take our opponent's stuff. We got a Graceful Charity to, draw deeper into our deck, pitch cards to grave, potentially get Chaos set up as well. We got a Heavy Storm to wipe away our opponent's back row. We got the Will, as I mentioned, for the Stein. We got a Metamorphosis here to go into potentially Thousand Eyes, or just a variety of other cards that we have here. Meta on a Zaborg or a Cyber Dragon can get us into something like Dark Balter, or even Fiend Skull Dragon as well. So it's not bad doing that. And meta on a Chaos Orc can also go into Ryu Senshi, which can come up as well. We got an MST to pop our opponent's back row. We got double knock to deal with their sets. We've got a Premature Burial to bring back our monsters. We've got a Scapegoat here to both act as a defensive buffer and also to pair with the meta. We've got a Snatch Steal here to take our opponent's stuff. We got a Call the Haunted to bring back our stuff. We got a Mirror Force to wipe away our opponent's aggression. We got double Return, as I mentioned earlier, and we got a Torrential Tribute to wipe away the board. For the side deck, this is pretty much exactly what GBO had in their side deck, except I shifted a Bottomless from the main to the side. There's a Karibo here for OTK strategies. There's a double Mobius and a double Dust Tornado for more back row heavy strategies and decks like the sort of anti-meta stun deck, playing a ton of Dim Fuses, a ton of Macro Cosmos as well, and these can definitely come in for those. We've got a legendary Jiu-Jitsu master for just a variety of decks. Bouncing things back to the top of the deck can be pretty good at sort of draw locking our opponent for a turn. We got brain cons in case we want to get aggressive and take our opponent's stuff. We've got double Saku here and double bottomless. I think this is mainly for the warrior matchup, although a lot of warrior decks in this format are leaning into the dim fuse stuff, so I'm not really sure how good bottomless is there, but it doesn't seem if like your opponent's doing that, then this can be pretty good. We've got triple trap death shoot for when we know we're going first. A lot of decks play this in the main. I think we can also potentially play this in the main, but either way here, it's good to bring in if we're going first. That's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into the card by card and see how this deck actually plays. Okay, we got a game here against mine with Gerbil, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're diving in to the games here, and we're going to win the rock, paper, scissors. If you'll notice, I threw out a rock because I figured that people are shifting away from the paper strat now that I've been featuring it in the channel so much. So I threw out a rock, and, you know, if they had scissors, then we'd win there. If they threw a rock, then I would feel confident throwing paper because I feel like they're thinking that we wouldn't go paper. So, you know, it's all about the rock, paper, scissors mind games there. But we're going to dive in to the games we are going first, and we open with a Comfy in the opener. That's about as good as it gets. We're going to go for the Comfy here, get a peek at their hand. We see that they're on a Dead Rat strategy because they've got a Pyramid Turtle, a Creature Swap, Call the Haunted Heavy Storm, and MST. Now, given what we've got like TT and MST, I kind of want to just take away the Heavy Storm in case, you know, we get more back row later on. I don't want to give them too much back row removal. But I think in hindsight, the best option here would have been for Creature Swap, just sending that away. Because I can banish the Pyramid Turtle with the DD Warrior Lady, and I am planning on doing that. That's part of why, you know, in what I actually do here, I just send the Heavy, because I'm like, well, okay, I can banish the Pyramid Turtle, and I'm fine with that. And then the Creature Swap is dead, Call the Haunt is dead, and I can sort of play around MST a little bit. So I do just ultimately decide to send the Heavy. I think, again, in hindsight, I probably should have taken the Creature Swap because they've got plenty of recruiters in their deck for after we've cleared the turtle. We said the MST because I figured that they're likely going to MST this, and the call will be dead if we banish a turtle. But unfortunately, they draw into Reaper, so Reaper will be able to rip a card out of hand, unfortunately, here, and they're going to rip the Magician of Faith. Not the biggest deal in the world because, you know, we just had MST and Comfy set here, but it would have been nice to get back the MST for the call. But unfortunately, you know, that Reaper did put in some work, and now we're in a bit of a tricky spot. We're going to go for a DD Warrior Lady here, attack into the Reaper, and we are indeed going to banish here, because if they go Creature Swap for a Pyramid Turtle, then they can just choose not to banish after they attack in with the Warrior Lady, bring out a zombie from deck, and that's really bad for us. So now we're going to set a TT, pass back to them, and they're going to summon out a turtle here. We're going to let that go through. We know about the call anyways, so you don't really need to care about, you know, TTing here. We draw into a Sidra. We're going to tribute that for a Zaborg, pop the Pyramid Turtle, attack in directly, or at least attempt to. They've got a call for this, and now because we know about the Creature Swap, we kind of do have to TT this. It's really awkward, but, you know, we don't have the life points to actually let them do the Creature Swap. So again, you know, the Creature Swap is just causing troubles for us this entire game. So if I had taken that instead of the Heavy, I think things would have turned out a lot better here. We draw a call, though, so that's pretty good. And we can call back one of our powerful monsters here after we get the Dekoichi. And they're going to go for a Creature Swap here. And we can also use call to bring back a weak monster here. So we're going to give them the Magician of Faith. They tribute out a Ryukoki. That's perfectly fine by us. They attack into this giant rat, and they're going to bring out another giant rat from deck. Attack over our Dekoichi, and Dekoichi will draw us a card. We draw into Knock, which isn't really the most useful here, and we draw into Sork. Sork's actually pretty good. We're going to banish Light in the Dark, and we're going to bring out that Sork in defense mode so that way they can't just crash Rat into Sork, into Turtle, into Koki, and get over our Sork that way. So hopefully this is enough. Unfortunately, they've got a Snatch Steal here, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So that's going to do it for game one here. We're going to go into game two. Now, I think in general, our deck has a good matchup against Dead Rat. I just need to, you know, play better. You know, for instance, taking the swap as opposed to the Heavy Storm would have been a lot better here. Now, because we're going first, you might expect us to side into Trap Death Shoot. I actually chose not to side into Trap Death Shoot because oftentimes Dead Rat decks can just brick on Ryukokis, and it's not really productive for us to shuffle that back into the deck. So I feel like Trap Death Shoot, while a very powerful card, is actually not really the best in this matchup. So I largely keep the deck the same. I believe I might keep it exactly the same because I just have a really good matchup against this. I feel like Knock is still good against this deck. That's potentially something we could have sided out, but we chose to keep that in. And yeah, I might have sided in Saku's as well. I think, yeah, I forget if I sided in Saku's. I guess we'll find out over the course of this game. But Saku also isn't a bad option here. But anyways, I just set the Sangan first turn. They set 2 and pass back to us. And we're just going to get in for 1,000 here. Set a Scapegoat, pass back to them. We're playing around TT here. I feel like we don't need to commit into it right now. We could have summoned out a Breaker, but that trades for the back row either way. if they've got TT. So I feel like we can hold off on the breaker a little bit here. We got Scapegoat as well in case they make a major push or activate creature swap. So I feel fine about this. They go for MST on our back row. It is Scapegoat. So maybe we'll bring out those GOAT tokens. And I feel like if they do have TT, now is the time to activate it. But it looks like they're not going to do anything. So that to me says that we might not have to worry about TT from those first two back row at least. The new back row, maybe TT, but the first two I don't think are TT. They're going to set one pass back to us. We draw an enemy controller here, which is pretty good, that is. We're going to set an enemy controller and pass back to them. We're not going to attack another set because I feel like that set can probably withstand our Sangan here, so no real point to doing that. They're going to flip up a Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke here, and think about this, and they're just going to attack into a GOAT token. That's perfectly fine for us. We can bring out a monster here, and we're just going to bring out that Suk, flip down the Sasuke, or at least attempt to, but they've got the TT for that, so it was the new set there. So that's quite unfortunate for us, but we do get to search off Sangan, which isn't that bad. So we get to search out this Magical Merchant. Now we can go for a Comfy here as well and get a peek at what they're working with. We see a Giant Rat, a Koki, a Snatch Kill, and a Meta here. I think what we want to do is just get rid of Snatch because that is the most problematic card for us. Just, any monster that we leave on field could be Snatch stolen, and I don't really like that. I feel like we can leave Koki in hand, and Rat, while annoying, can be dealt with by our DD Warrior Lady here. So I'm not really too concerned about that. We're just going to pass back to them. They are going to just pass back to us. So it seems like they're holding that Rat. So that way, once we get a monster out that they can crash into, they can attack into it. So we're just going to attack directly with this breaker because I figure this will trade for back row either way. Might as well have a trade for the back row beforehand. It's a 50-50 that we hit anything live here anyways. So, I expect that one of those back row is not live. So we just attacked in and it did trade for the Saku there. We could have done the 50-50 beforehand, but I think this was also pretty fine. So Rat's going to attack in for 14, pass back to us, and we draw a Chaos Orc, which is not online yet, but once we get this light out on field, maybe it will be. So we're going to go for a Cyber Dragon here and then summon out the DD Warrior Lady. We'll attack in to the Rat with the Warrior Lady, banish both, and now attack in directly for 2100. They've got this Scapegoat here, so that will indeed protect them, and I'm very glad I didn't 50-50 the breaker there because, again, one of those back row was chainable. And we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to go for meta here, so they are able to go into a Thousand Eyes Restrict, and they're able to take control of our side row. That's a bit unfortunate for us, and we could potentially even econ the Thousand Eyes here if we wanted to, but I don't think we necessarily need to. We can take that 21 and just let them sort of do what they want to do, and we can save our econ for later. Now we draw MST, so we could MST the Sidra and get that Light and Grave, then get a Light and Dark banish for Chaos Orc and banish the Thousand Eyes. I don't think that's really necessary though. We can just set this Merchant, get a Light and Grave that way, and also get a spell to hand. So they're going to attack into the Merchant. We are going to mill. I'm very glad we milled that Cyber Sign. That would not have been a good draw. But we draw into a Book of Moon there. That's pretty good for us because we can book down that Restrict and attack over it. So we're just going to MST their Unknown back row in the end phase here. It's a Mirror Force, which I'm very happy that we got rid of there. So we're just going to special out this Sidra, and then we're going to tribute that for a Zaborg. We could have just booked down their Restrict and done that. But I think, with the Zaborg here, we can pop it and then save the book for later because book is a little bit more flexible for us here. So I'm fine just doing that. I'm then going to banish the Light and Dark, clear their last token with the Chaos Orc, and then attack into their other token with the Zaborg. Now, I bring out the Chaos Orc in defense mode because I'm like, I don't want them to be crashing into the Chaos Orc. It's 100 less attack than Zaborg. If they do crash into something, I want them to crash into Zaborg. I do think this was actually a mistake, though, because either way, they can crash into one of our monsters on field, and by putting in defense, we do make ourselves more vulnerable to Cyber Dragon. Now, we do have ways to defend our monsters here from Cyber Dragon, but it would have been better just to not open ourselves up to that possibility in the first place. They're going to attack in with the Cyber Dragon, and we're just going to book that down. They do know about the book already, so we may as well use that up and potentially catch them off guard when they go for a big play here. So they're going to crash the Pyramid Turtle into the Zaborg, attack in to our Chaos Orc. We've got the econ for that, so we'll switch to defense. And they're just going to pass back to us. I feel very good about this because we can just banish that Koki with the Chaos Orc there and then attack into the Sidra with the Zaborg. We switched the Chaos Orc into attack because we've learned our mistake here. We draw into Saki, so we did indeed side that in. I forget what I sided out then for that. But there are a variety of cards in our deck that don't quite equate well against this Dead Rat deck. But I think in general, our deck has a pretty good matchup against it. But they're going to attack in with the Rat into the Chaos Orc, bring out a Pyramid Turtle. And this is showing one of the weaknesses of Dead Rat in this format. And this is a weakness that it has in Reaper as well. where it is reliant on just crashing into your opponent's stuff, taking damage, sort of using life points as a resource. But then if you're up against a good opponent who knows when to use their, battle traps and stuff, you can just get majorly punished because they took a bunch of damage getting out that Koki to try and get into our Chaos Orc, but we had Saku there, and we were not going to use Saku before they brought out a monster that could actually do something there. And, I mean, the one way that would be punished is if they brought out, like, Exiled Force off the Rat, and then Tributed popped one of our stuff, but then they've got an empty board anyways, we can get in for damage, so I feel like either way we were fine there. Anyway, this is a really good opening. Unfortunately, they've got coffee, so they're able to rip apart this opening a little bit. They're going to discard Stein, which to me tells us that they've got not the best defensive options here. Otherwise, they probably would have taken something else. And it looks like they're just going to set one and pass. So that tells me that, yes, they really do not have the most defensive options here. We're going to bring out a side right here. Attack into their set is a DD Worley. So they will be able to banish our monster here. We can set a Dekoichi and a Scapegoat. Pass back to them. I didn't feel the need to get more aggressive, especially when we got powerful flip to go into. They're going to go for a Rhoda here for Sasuke, which is perfectly fine by us because we still get the draw here. So I'm okay with that. We're going to draw into, Charity is so good, especially with Night Assailant in hand. So we draw into a Suk as well. It's kind of unfortunate because not the best discard, but I think that these draws were pretty good here, honestly. We're just going to pitch the Night Assailant and the Last Will. Last Will is mainly in the deck to bring out Stein, and since Stein is already gone, we can just pitch the Last Will and then add back this Dekoichi off the Night Assailant effect. So if we can protect our Dekoichi, that's pretty good, but I think we just want to get rid of this Sasuke because we don't really have a good way to protect the Dekoichi. So we're going to go in with the Suk. Add that back to hand, pass back to them. If they go for an aggressive push here, we've got the Scapegoat here. And then we can go Scapegoat into meta next turn. We got Suk for that as well. So we feel really good about this. We're going to summon out this DD Warlady here, attacking for 15. They've got a goat of their own, which is a little bit unfortunate for us, but not the end of the world by any means. And we're going to attack in to that Scapegoat token, and then just set a Mirror Force, pass back to them. If they've got heavy, we get punished here, but we do have the Scapegoat here to wall up a bit if they do go for heavy here. They're going to go for a meta here, and they're going to tribute off one of those tokens for a restrict. That's sort of what our game plan is in the future here. They're going to bring out that restrict and then go for a Last Will here. That's quite interesting. They're going to go for a Koki as well, and then they're going to bring out an Injection Fairy Lily. Oof, that's a bit rough. They're going to attack in, and we could potentially go for Scapegoat, get a setup for our meta play next turn. But I think that this Mirror Force is about as high value as you can get on that, so I'd rather just go for that. Because if we had gone meta on one of the tokens that we brought out here, brought out Restrict, we wouldn't really have a good thing to suck up here. We could have sucked up the Koki, but that loses to the Lily. So it's not really the best. I mean, we got a Light and Dark Engrave, so we could have just brought out Chaos Orc, banished the Lily, and then just had a 2400 attack point beater. I mean, I don't know. There's a couple things we maybe could have done. We also could have summoned out Suk and set down the Lily, and then attacked over it with the Restrict. But I think in general, this was just the better play because they had some powerful monsters on board, and we can save that for later. So we're going to set the Dekoichi. They go for a Rhoda here, grabbing an Exiled Force, and unfortunately, they will be able to pop our Dekoichi there. That's kind of rough. And then they go for a Pre-Mat here, targeting the Ryu Koki. That's a bit unfortunate for us, but we do have the Scapegoat, so we will go for Scapegoat. I do feel like now is a good time to suck up that Koki with the Restrict. So I feel good about that. We also could just go for Snatch Steal on the Koki and then flip it down with Suk to keep it. But I think it's fine just going for the Restrict here instead. So we are going to think about this. We're going to go for a meta play here and go into the Restrict, suck up that Koki there, and then just attack in to one of the tokens. They do have Saku for that, so that will be cleared there. But I think this is ultimately fine. We've each got 2 tokens, but we got 4 cards in hand in addition to that. And we sort of got ways saved up to just win the game through multiple different avenues. So we feel very good about this. And, you may have noticed that we do not need the Chaos Return stuff at all. We don't need return here, right? Now we've got a potential good sort of setup for return. But, I don't think we even need it, right? We've got the tools here to play a much slower game here. We're going to bring out a Chaos Orc in defense, and we're going to banish that token. And you might be like, why do you bring in defense? Didn't you learn from last game? Well, they've got a token on field, so they can't bring out Sidra here. So I think this is fine. They're going to set one pass back to us. We draw Zaborg, which is pretty good, although we don't really have good tribute fodder for it. We're going to banish that token, summon out the Suk, flip down the Chaos Orc, to then flip it face up. So now we can actually attack with it, because it doesn't actually remember that it's banished something there. So we're going to attack in for 3,400 total. And now the suit gets added to hand. We'll pass back to them. If they somehow mount some pressure against this, we've got Snatch to take their stuff. We got pre-mat to bring something back from grave. I mean, we still got Stein in grave too, so we can pre-mat back Stein if we really want to go for an aggressive push here. They've got Sidra, and they're going to attack into a token. That's perfectly fine by us. We're just going to, draw. And then I think do the same play that we did before. So we're going to banish the Sidra there. Summon out the Sook. They've got Solemn for that. Okay, so that will stop our game plan a little bit here. But luckily we do have this pre-mat, so we can go for a play here. But they've got a Solemn for that as well. So they've used up 2 Solemns here. But they did successfully stop our play here. But we're still in a very, very good spot. We got Call. We still got a Sork up. They've got 1 card. We got Snatch Steal. I mean, we are feeling very, very good about this. They're just going to set 1 pass back to us. I mean, we got Zaborg, so we can distribute Zaborg out and then attack in directly, and that will be the end of the game. So again, we didn't need the return stuff here. We were just very, very good on just chaos control stuff, and I think that's one of the sort of downsides to going for the chaos return strat, is that oftentimes you don't really need the return stuff to win the game. You can just rely on a control strategy instead. But this wasn't the only game I got with the deck. Let's dive into the next one now. Okay, we got a game against Highly in 93 for our next game. Another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're diving in. Again, I go for the rock strat into the paper, but they counter with their own paper. So now I got to think. Now I got to be like, well, okay, what do they expect us to do next? Well, I think that they're just going to keep going back to rock, because I think that they think that we're going to keep going down the line. And so they're going to throw the thing that beats scissors, but I'll stay on paper to stop that. So, we're doing pretty well in the RPS meta, and this is a pretty good hand, all things considered. We're just going to set this Magician of Faith, set a Book of Moon, pass back to them, because I figure that if they bring out a monster here, we can just book it down, flip the Faith, grab back the book, and do things like that. So, I think it's fine. We also have a monster to tribute for the Zaborg next turn if we could go for that, but they've got a knock here, so that will deal with our Magician of Faith. So that'll be banished there, and we will banish the other Magician of Faith as well. And looks like they don't have any Magician of Faith in their deck. They're going to bring out a Don's Luke here, and I think we have to book that down because that is just too big of a threat. So we do indeed book that down. We draw into Sangan here, which is pretty good. We're going to special summon out this Sidra. They've got a Bottomless for that. We can knock the Zalug there because we want to bring in the Sangan and get in for some damage here. We will indeed successfully do that. We're going to set an Econ here, pass back to them. They're going to go for a Graceful Charity here, draw 3, pitch 2. Pitching a Sasuke and 1 more card. They're going to pitch an Assailant here, bring out a Breaker, and then target our back row. We're going to just chain that Breaker to defense, and then they're going to set 1, fire a Rhoda here, bring out Survivor, okay, and then they're going to activate Dim Fizz. Okay, that's a problem for us, because now our Sangan will not get a search. This Charity is not going to really be the best either, because we can't really set up our grave as much, but we will still go for the Charity, because I feel like we kind of have to dig for a way to stop that Dim Fizz. Unfortunately, we don't really draw it. We draw into a TT, which I'm just going to pitch, and I'm also going to pitch this Treeborn Frog here because, Frog is not really going to get the most value for us when a Dim Fizz is up. So we're going to tribute that Sangan, bring out Zaborg. We could have also just summoned out the Warrior Lady instead and attacked over the Breaker normally, but I felt like Zaborg was more aggressive, got more damage in, and if they just attack over the Warrior Lady with the Breaker, or not Breaker, but Survivor, then we sort of lose the value of the Warrior League. So I'd rather save this for later and put a threat on field that actually stops the Survivor, but unfortunately they do have Solemn for that, so that will get rid of the Zaborg here. Now they can bring out a Survivor here, attack in for 3,400. It's quite unfortunate for us, but we do still have like some plays left in deck. It's not the best for us, and knock is definitely not going to be very good for us here. We attack into the Breaker, we banish the Warrior Lady and the Breaker there, set the knock, pass back to them. They've got Dust Tornado though, so that will get rid of the knock. They're going to set 1 attack in with Survivor here, drop us down to 2,700, pass back to us. We got Zaborg, which will not help us here, so we just got to hope that they don't draw a monster, but unfortunately they do, so that'll be the end of game 1. So yeah, that really does show how powerful the like Dim Fizz and Macro or Banish or whatever you have to banish can be against a chaos-based deck. But, we are playing Return, and Return can be very good against these decks that are just banishing all our monsters because it fuels our Return plays. So what we do here is we side into, our back row removal, we side into the double Dust, we side into the double Mobius as well, just to sort of hopefully stop that, because this deck is very annoying for us. We also side in to triple Dust Tornado, or not Dust Tornado, but triple Trap Dust Shoot, because we are going first, so this can shuffle back some good cards for them. And we're just going to start by setting Sangan, setting Dust Shoot, setting Dust Tornado. Now, this might be a risky play because they could have Knock, and Sangan is very good for us. But the way I figure it is that if they're on 2 Rhoda and maybe multiple Don's Lug, and we did see Don's Lug out of them game 1, then they've got at least 3 ways to get a Don's Lug on board. Whereas, you know, with this, they've only got 2 ways to get a knock, right? Because knock is unsearchable. So I figure that it's better to do this. Now I do have Dust Shoot, so realistically they only have like 2 ways to get Zalug as well, because, you know, they have to basically have Rhoda, because if I see Don Zalug in their hand, I'm shuffling it back with the Dust Shoot. But either way, I think this is fine. And I might want to like sort of save Dust Shoot for Rhoda. I don't here though, so I just go for the Dust Shoot. See, they've got a Banisher, a Sidra, a Survivor, a Dust Tornado, a Nobleman, and an Econ. Now, since they already have Nobleman, I could have potentially left them with the Banisher, but I don't want to give them a way to potentially, you know, fuel the Survivor. So I choose to do this. Also, thing about Banisher is it banishes all cards sent to graveyard, not just monsters, which then just turns off our Magician of Faith. So I don't necessarily want to let them have that in hand. It is annoying because they could get aggressive with the Sidra and the Survivor, but a lot of the times people like hold the Survivor until they have a way to actually get it banished, because it is a very important card for the deck. So I figured they might just hold it as well. But either way, I shuffle back the Banisher and leave them with Econ, Knock, Dust Tornado, Survivor, and Sidra. So they do a misordering here. They go Knock and then they special Sidra. Technically, like, if this was a tournament game, I wouldn't have allowed this, because seeing the Sangan and, you know, it does change things, because, like, you know, I could have potentially had TT there, and if they special summon Sidra first and I got on TT, then that would have been a whole thing. So, you know, this is a more casual game, though, so it is what it is. And I just allow that to happen, but it is good to just, you know, be more firm about, like, what you're actually doing, and, you know, it's not good to sort of like misorder things like that. But anyways, we draw a Return, which is actually not a bad card here, to bring back our Sangan and do things with that. But they've got Dust Tornado for our set. That's quite unfortunate for us. We're just going to set a Magician of Faith, set a Premat, and set a Return, pass back to them. I was hoping that they would save the Dust Tornado for the Premat, so that way we'd be able to, you know, bring back Premat with the Faith potentially. But there isn't really a good way to do that, really. So I think that was probably just wishful thinking on my part. But either way here, they're going to attack into the Faith. We don't have any spells in grave. We just set that because we need a monster in grave for our Zaborg. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw Cyber Sign, which is very dead at this point. Now we have 2 different lines of play here. We could potentially return, bring back the Sangan, and then tribute that for the Zaborg, and then try and pop their stuff. And then we have Premat online for later. I think in hindsight, that probably would have been the better play. But I'm figuring if they get a sort of way to remove from play things, then I want to save the Return for later when it can be a bit more valuable. And so instead, I'm just going to go for this Premat here and bring back a Faith, tribute off that Faith for a Zaborg, and then pop one of their things. So I'm going to choose ultimately to pop the Survivor, because they're only 300 damage apart. But if they do draw like a Dim Fizz here, then having Survivor is a lot worse for us than them having, you know, Cyber Dragon. So we knew about the Econ, so we knew that this Zaborg would die here anyways. But as long as they don't, well, Snatch Deal will do it anyways. And Snatch Deal actually means that even if we had done the return play earlier to bring back Sangan and then tribute that for Zaborg, then we still would have been losing here. So yeah, it'd been unfortunate, but either way here, we were kind of cooked. We got returned to at least mount a little bit of defense pressure, but it won't matter here. We're not playing Karibo in the deck, because I feel like siding Karibo in against a deck that's not an OTK deck doesn't really make much sense. So yeah, we unfortunately do lose this one. But that's going to do it for this game. I think this, you know, this strategy here is one that this deck had a lot of trouble dealing with, and returns can help a bit. But I think that, you know, it's probably better just for a Chaos Control deck to keep return from the different dimension in the side deck in case you're up against this style of deck. Because, you know, in general, I think the returns are a bit less good against this type of deck. And even with return, as you saw here, you know, it can be a bit tricky to actually, you know, mount a defense against this. If I had sent back the Sidra instead of the Banisher, maybe we would have been in a bit of a better spot because they would have had less aggressive pressure against us. But it still would have been a bit awkward in a variety of different ways. And, I mean, I think that Snatch just would have locked up the game here anyways. But we maybe would have had more time for our return to get set up and do things like that. So, I don't know. I think probably the Dust Shoot early on, our pick there probably cost us this game. But I think that we were probably fighting an uphill battle in this match anyways. Anyways, this was not the last game that I got with the deck. Let's dive into the last match that I got to show for y'all today. Okay, for our last replay, we got a game against Dump Truck, and here with the rock, paper, scissors, I mix it up a little bit. I throw rock, you know, doing what I did before, and they throw rock as well, but then I figure, okay, they're going to expect me to go paper now, like what I did before. But I'm going to mix it up and I'm just going to keep it on rocks because I know that they're going to throw scissors to counter my paper. So, yeah, we're 3-0 on the RPS games for these, for this video, that is. So hopefully we can, translate that RPS success to an actual game success here. So we're just going to start by setting a Treeborn Frog, passing back to them. I think there's a pretty decent start. If they've got Knock, that's unfortunate for us, but we've got other flip monsters that we probably, hate to lose more off Knock. So I feel like it's fine to just set up this Treeborn Frog early as well. It looks like they're just going to set 3, set 4, pass back to us. I feel pretty good about this until they fire a Dust Shoot. That's very unfortunate for us. They're able to send back that Zaborg there, and I'll get sent back to deck. We just bring out a Breaker here, and we'll pop one of their back row, or think about it at least. And we are indeed going to do that before we attack in. I think it's fine doing that now. There's not really much chainable stuff that we are really afraid of here. So we're just going to attack into their set now. And it's a Reaper, so that's kind of unfortunate for us. We could set Call the Haunted here as well, but they know that it's Call the Haunted, and we saw a Death Tornado out of them, so I feel like no real reason to go for Call here. They've got a Jar, though, so, we could have gotten a bit punished by our Breaker play there, but I think it was ultimately still fine. But, yeah, they're just going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Pre-Mat here, which is not really the best. We're just going to set a Night Assailant to deal with that Reaper here next turn. And they're going to just pass back to us. Okay, I feel really good about this. We can flip this Night Assailant, pop the Reaper there, and then just get in for some damage. Attacking in for 2, and then 1600. I feel like that's pretty good. And they've got a Scapegoat, though. So it seems like they wanted to preserve most of their tokens here, because they did take the 2. But I think it's ultimately fine just to leave them with those 3 tokens. And we could potentially set a Merchant here. I think in hindsight, I probably should have set Merchant here. But I decided not to. I decided just to pass back to them. I feel like saying Merchant would have just been the better play because it's something that gets me into spells, gets me into monsters, and great for our Chaos Orc, so probably would have been better overall, but I don't think it matters too much. We're just going to clear 2 of those tokens with our face-up attack monster. We could also have flipped up the Treeborn and done that as well, but I don't want to reveal what that Treeborn is just yet because they have no knowledge on that yet, so I feel like it's fine just going for this. I'm going to set the MST instead of the Call because, they do know about the Call in hand. We got no monster engrave to pair with it anyways. It can also be a bit more dead, for our Treeborn Frog than an MST can. So I'm fine just setting the MST here instead. They're just going to set 2 pass back to us. I'm going to MST that back row into Jar, so I'm very glad I did that now. We're going to flip a Merchant here, see what we get. And we get into a Book of Moon. That's pretty good. We also have this Sangan engrave for our Call and Pre-Mat, so that's very nice as well. We are going to just attack into the token with the Merchant. We're going to attack into the first set that they set with the Breaker. And we're going to think about whether we want to attack into the new set with the Night Assailant. I think since we saw Treeborn Frog gone there isn't really much benefit to doing that with Night Assailant. So we're just going to switch that to defense, set a Book, and set a Call pass back to them. This is a bit risky given that we do have this Treeborn Frog. But I feel like, if they've got Mobius or something, then popping both, then that's really good for us because Call's basically a chainable now, getting back Sangan, and Book can be used to set down our Night Assailant or our Magical Merchant here. So I feel pretty good about this overall. They're going to get back that Treeborn Frog. That's fine by us. And now they're going to go for a heavy here. So, either way, I still feel like we get a lot of value out of this. We're able to go for Call, bring back this Sangan, pop the Sangan, and we're also able to book down our Night Assailant. Now, it's a little bit risky because, our Magical Merchant isn't attacked. It leaves us a little bit vulnerable to plays on our opponent's part. But I think that's still ultimately fine because we get to use this to then pop any big threats that they bring out. So I feel like that's pretty good. And we search out a Stein with our Sangan because I feel like we're in a pretty good position to just get aggressive with the Stein. If they want to commit back row to stop a potential Stein push, then, it shuts off their Treeborn a little bit. So I'm fine just holding it like that. They're going to go for Last Will, though, here. Flip up a Magician of Faith and activate Last Will again. That makes things a little bit scary for us. They're going to attack into this Night Assailant here, and we will have to pop a monster that they've got. We're just going to choose to pop the Treeborn here because, that Magician of Faith will be an attack now, so we can potentially get in over it for some damage here in case they try and go for Stein or something like that. And they're just going to bring out a Mystic Tomato and a DD Warrior Lady. So they're going to attack into our Merchant with the Tomato. They're going to attack into our Treeborn with the Warrior Lady. And luckily the Warrior Lady will banish both itself and the Treeborn. They could have also potentially not done that, but knowing that we do play some Monarchs probably is for the best that they banish that. But I feel pretty good about this overall. Opponent's going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Snatch Steal, which is pretty good here. We got to think about exactly what we want to do here. We could potentially go for a big push with the Stein. We could go Stein, pay 5 for Senshi, snatch the Tomato, maybe Enemy Controller, the Faith. That's 17 37 plus Breaker is 53, and then plus Sidra. So it doesn't quite do it. Well, we got Premat as well, so that would be, let's see, we got to worry about space issues at that point as well. So I don't think we can, well, actually, because we tribute the Night Asylum for the Econ. So actually, I think that is lethal damage there. So we could go for that. And that could be something good because we do have, you know, over 1,000 life points to pay for Sentry. Scapegoat's gone as well. You don't need to worry about that. It could be a bit risky into like a Book of Moon though. So I'm not sure if I want to do that necessarily. We're just going to go for a snatch here on the Tomato and tribute that for a Sidra. Play it a bit safe here and attack into that Magician of Faith. And that will just go through. Okay, I was a bit worried about a book because they had the Magician of Faith in attack there, but looks like they didn't have it. So we're just going to set this Econ pass back to them. And they are going to think about this a bit, go for a Banish of a Light in the Dark for a Sork here, banishing our Sidra, then bring out a Tomato, attacking over the Night Assailant, and passing back to us. So I feel pretty good about this because we do have, you know, Econ to take control of the Sork. We've got a Sork of our own as well. So I feel like we can just go for a lethal push here, especially given that they're at 4,400, that is. So we've got 5,000 to pay off that Sidra. We bring out a Ryu Sentry here to shut off any traps they might have. We Econ the Sork. We will banish the Tomato with that Sork. And then we can bring out a Sork of our own to push for lethal. We've also got this Premat to potential push for lethal. Just bring back like a Sangan or something and doing things with that. So either way here, we got a lot of different options. I probably would have gone, well, Premat actually shuts off our Sentry, so that wouldn't have been the best. So we probably just go for Sork here. And then if they do have something that we have to negate with Sentry, then we're fine with that. If it's just a spell instead, then we can go for like Premat for something here. I don't know. Maybe this is a little bit risky. But I think it was still worth the risk. And it turns out to work out for us because, you know, they've got that return there. So, yeah, I think honestly, actually what I should have done is probably... Now, I was thinking like if we just brought out a Sork and banished with our Sork first, and then we could save our Sork or their Sork attack for last. Then we could have potentially, you know, put it in a position where if they did stop our aggressive push, we could have banished our own Sork, or their own Sork, that is. But I think it was fine just doing that if we did, and it did work out for us in the end. So seeing that they're on return, I feel like we got a pretty good matchup here against what they're playing. But they got Graceful, and that will definitely help them here in the early game. So they're going to set 3-4, pass back to us. Okay, that is a bit scary. They've got a Dust Shoot here. They're able to send back that Sidra, which is kind of rough for us. And they've got another Dust Shoot here, so they're able to send back a Zaborg as well. And that's quite unfortunate. But we do still have this Warrior Lady to just get aggressive here. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in this Warrior Lady attack in for 15. Drop them down by 15. Set down this enemy controller and just pass back to them. So they're going to go for a jar here, draw 1. They're going to then go for another jar here, draw 2. That explains why they just set their entire hand that first turn. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into a Zaborg here. Which is pretty good. We could tribute the Warrior Lady for the Zaborg and pop their monster. But I figure I'm fine just attacking in with the Warrior Lady in case something like Sangan or in case something like Treeborn Frog. I mean, they might not necessarily set that into a Warrior Lady, so maybe it is better to just go for Zaborg here. But I think it's fine just holding as we are. We got Snatch to take control of their stuff to then tribute for Zaborg if they set up a board of 2 monsters. So I feel like this is ultimately fine. So we're just going to attack in with the Warrior Lady. And unfortunately, it is a Merchant. That's going to be pretty bad for us. But luckily, they just send... Well, actually, it doesn't really matter here either way. They send all lights because they've got 2 darks there. And that's going to be quite unfortunate for us. So now they've got Chaos set up. And that's why we didn't banish the Merchant, because I figured that the Merchant still gets this effect. They probably will be milling some lights anyways. So no real point in keeping that out of their graveyard. So they're going to banish a Light in the Dark indeed for a Chaos Sork here, and they will banish the Warrior Lady, which is quite unfortunate, but we do have the Snatch Shield to take control of the Sork, then tribute that for a Zaborg, so I feel pretty good about that. We also have this Sidra. Oh, they got a Dust Shoot. That is unfortunate. Okay, well, you know, it is what it is. We can still snatch the Sork there, banish it with its own effect, and then special summon out this Sidra. So we're going to attack into the set. We also could have, like, hard tributed over the Sork as well. Just to prevent them from getting return more online. But I'm fine doing this. I think it's fine. We're still at 80,000, so I don't think a return play will like kill us here, even with that Sork in there. So I don't know though. I just had a call, pass back to them. They've got heavy, but I think calls just as a defensive option is for the best. But they're going to set one pass back to us. We draw a Last Will, which is not terrible, but not really the best for us here. They're going to go for a Magician of Faith, grab back that Graceful Charity, and that's quite unfortunate for us. They go for Graceful Charity, draw 3, pitch 2. They're able to set up their graveyard even further, and they're going to flip up this Reaper. They're going to attack in for 300 with the Reaper. We're just going to econ that because we got to use econ on that eventually anyways. I could potentially save the econ for, after I have a monster on field to then, tribute that monster, target the Reaper, pop the Reaper, then go for Last Will and like bring out potentially like a Stein maybe and go for a Stein play here. That's a potential option I could have done. But I figured they've got some way to stop that because they've drawn deep into their deck with Graceful, and they do need to have the copy there to rip the Last Will out of hand. Now we're just going to call back this Sidra in the end Faith just to have it on field. Try and attack over the Faith there. They go for Book on the Faith, and they will get back a Graceful Charity. So they're just able to keep going here. We're just going to set this Mirror Force. I could potentially have saved it in hand because they haven't gone through heavy now. They've still got that Graceful to draw deeper into their deck. And if they heavy our Mirror Force away as well as the call, then that's kind of unfortunate. But I'm up by game, and so I'm playing a bit greedily here. I think it's just good to have the Mirror Force set there in general, but I don't know. Maybe I should have saved the Mirror Force for after they set a card because I want to save Mirror Force for when they've got a return play. And so it can get a bit risky here if they don't have that set. But now they've got a card set, so I feel fine about that. We set the Scapegoat here in case it's something like Morphing Jar. Not sure if they're playing it, but just in case. They will add back another Charity here, and they're just able to go deep into their deck. And now actually, Deck Out is a potential option for us to win here because they're drawing deeper into our deck, and we're still at 7,700. So that's something potentially to think about. They go for Snatch, though, on our Sidra. Bring out a Sangan as well. And we're just going to go for Scapegoat. We're gaining 1,000 from the Snatch every time. So I feel like Scapegoat's fine. This plays a little bit poorly into if they've got like Heavy Storm, but if they go Heavy Return, then I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of an awkward spot for them because again, they can't necessarily kill us here, even with the Sork, Tomato, and Zaborg, because we'll get back our Sidra at that point. So I feel ultimately pretty fine about this. They're going to send another pass back to us, and now I feel perfectly fine, just not playing around heavy for the near future. I draw into Breaker, which is honestly pretty perfect. I go for Breaker, pop the Snatch Steal, get back the Sidra, and now I get aggressive here, attacking over the Sangan. This will get them a search, so that's part of why I'm doing this, because it gets us one step closer to a Deck Out win con in case we are going for that. We attack into them directly with this Sidra, dropping them down to 2,800, passing back to them. They are going to go for a Jar of Greed here, drawing one deeper. Just keep drawing closer to the end. That's what I'm hoping for here. Then we're going to Sidra, and they're just going to attack over our Breaker here. Now, normally, if I was trying to go for an aggressive win con, maybe I would have gone for Mirror Force here to clear the Sidra. But as is, I'm just trying to stall the game long enough for me to win through Deck Out at this point. Maybe I should have gone for Mirror Force here, but I just think it's probably better, especially since we know about the Reaper in hand, and that will stop us from getting super aggressive. I think it's better just to hold it. I go for Knock on the Reaper, though, since we draw it, and, it is the Reaper, so it does clear that. We attack in with our Sidra, hitting into theirs, and just clearing that, so hopefully they don't have too much aggressive pressure at this point. They're going to go for Pre-Mat here, though, bring back a Sangan, and that's perfectly fine by us. Again, this might be another search for them, and that gets them one step closer to Deck Out at this point, and they're just going to clear our 2 tokens. And now it's a little bit risky because they are getting more aggressive pressure here. I set the Faith because I figured that they're probably going to attack him with Zalug first and then Sangan, and that will allow me to retain the card that I get off Faith. They're just going to go for Exile, though, and pop that, though, so it won't ultimately matter here for us. They're going to attack in for 24. We could potentially Mirror Force this, but I really don't want them to then go for return after that and get in for, I think, that will be lethal damage, 47. Now, not quite lethal damage, but still a lot of damage here. So I'm just going to take this 24. Again, saving the Mirror Force for later. And we get rewarded for this because they do go for the return play here. And we can just use Mirror Force on this. So I do think it was fine for them to go for this play, because you got to get aggressive at some point, and the clock is ticking for them there. But unfortunately, it did not work out for them. And they do get to add a Warrior Lady to hand, which is pretty good. But we can sort of just stall out the game a little bit. We summon out Reaper, attack in. We could have also set the Reaper instead, potentially, if we wanted to play a little bit more defensively. Let's see. Have they gone through both knocks? They have gone through both knocks. So that doesn't really clear it. And the Reaper is trading for the Warrior Lady either way here, I guess. But I do think it's fine doing this. I mean, I don't know. Actually, in hindsight, I probably should have said it just because of the reason I said, where the Reaper is trading for the Warrior Lady either way. And there are potential ways that our opponent can punish us for this. But, yeah, they do have that way to punish us there. They go for call, bring back a Chaos Orc, and now we're in a bit of a tough spot. They're going to bring out this Warrior Lady, attack in for 12, and now they can potentially banish both it and the Reaper, but they choose not to because they figure it's not enough high priority. I think that does make sense. They can just banish it next turn, but this does block an attack next turn, so I don't know about that. But either way, we're going to banish a Light and a Dark, go for the Chaos Orc here, and banish their Chaos Orc, get that out of the way, switch the Reaper to defense, pass back to them. They're down to 3 cards here, so I feel pretty good about this. They're going to attack into the Chaos Orc just to clear it, which I do think makes sense, because otherwise they're in a bit of a tough spot. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a return of our own, so we could go for that later, but I don't even think we need it. They're going to go for heavy here. We could chain return, but I feel like that is more of a liability to us than an asset, so I'm just going to choose to let that go and not use it. They're just going to set another pass back to us. They've only got 2 cards left. We could summon outside for get aggressive, but I don't really feel the need to, so I'm just going to pass back to them. They set another pass back to us. We draw Night Assailant so they can pop whatever big threats they bring out, but they just draw their last card, and that'll be the end of the game. So they just drew into a Breaker last, and they just had MST and Scapegoat. So either way, I don't think we were actually getting in to their life points directly here to kill them. But we were still winning this game because, you know, they actually filtered too much into their deck with the Graceful, but that can happen, you know. It doesn't happen often in this format, but it is one of the risks of Chaos Return where, like, oftentimes, even if you go for the return, like, your opponent might have a way to stop it, and then, you know, what does it really do for you, right? Which is another reason why I'm, like, not the biggest fan of return in this Chaos Control deck. I think just Chaos Control is a good enough deck on its own that doesn't need the return element, the big explosive element there that a lot of other decks have. But that's just my thoughts on the deck. What do you think about the deck? Let me know down in the comments below. I look forward to discussing with y'all as always. Also, if you like what you saw here and want to see more gameplay content from Chaos Return format or a variety of other retro Yu-Gi-Oh formats, definitely subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 1,500 subscribers. We were trying to do it by the end of June, but right now is the end of June. We're still about 20 away, but we're still trying to reach that goal at some point. It'll definitely help us reach that goal if you're not already subscribed. And also, if you want to support me directly, I've got a Patreon linked in the description down below. And if you join the Patreon, you get a shout out in the videos. So big shout out to Tyler Compton, GeoMyFest, Rincewin, Pork Tycoon, Brent Donker, and Dump Truck. It really means a lot that you all support me this way. You're going to make more videos like this in the future. If you want to play games in Chaos Return format or any other format that I featured on the channel, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below. We hold monthly tournaments there as well, and we will be holding a Chaos Return format tournament as well in the near future. But I hope you enjoyed as always, and until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.